this is me, Jana. I'm a dark fantasy artist and illustrator, and this is the third and last of my tiny series of draw with me. I think that's the right YouTube term for this type of content. It's a study based on a photo I've taken at the Natural History Museum of a little jackdaw, cheeky little jackdaw, and I'm going to paint it in acrylics, in black acrylics. And it's actually going to be kind of reminiscent to how I work on my professional artwork. It was meant to be just an acrylic study and getting all detailed with the acrylics, but it was the second study I was doing that day, and I was already, like, my focus wasn't great anymore, so I was getting impatient and I started switching media, and that's why I ended up working with carbon pencil on the artwork as well as I would do if I was, you know, working on my professional illustration work. So yeah, you're getting a glimpse of that if you're interested. Yeah, so get yourself something nice to drink, some snacks, find something to do and to occupy your hands with, and probably parts of your brain, because not a lot is gonna happen. I might end up talking about, yes, I might end up talking about some unrelated stuff, and sometimes I'll just not be talking at all because my brain is fried. So yeah, never mind. I keep rambling in these. That's what happens if I don't script. That's what happens. Yeah, I hope you enjoy it. I will not feel hurt if you stop like 2 minutes in and are like, what's that? Anyways, have a great day. Bye. Last one, acrylic painting, yes. And we're going to paint a cute jackdaw. Again, I'm using a reference I shot at the Natural History Museum in Potsdam. This time I'll start with a rough pencil sketch, because working with black acrylic paints, I feel insecure if I have to do that with the paint itself. Though it works, you just have to be very careful, because you have to just use very light paint, just dilute it with a lot of water. But that's not what we're gonna do today. Now, going with a pencil drawing, trying to be, it's being really rough. So this one has a peanut in its beak. I mean, part of a peanut shell anyways. So I think I might have made this beak a bit too long. Okay. Finding the big shapes again. It's fine. No, it's not fine. That doesn't work at all. This is where we have the corner of the mouth, and then from that one the eye would be here. Does that work? Not quite. This is too far. Nothing works. Okay, this is kind of it. I usually, when I work with acrylics, I usually do the underdrawing with a carbon pencil. This is graphite, because carbon kind of melts into the paint. It's matte and black already, so it kind of fades away more easily. But I'm using a pencil now, a graphite pencil, because I wasn't really thinking. I tend to use graphite pencils if I do an underdrawing for watercolor painting, because the carbon pencil dissolves, and then I would have, I mean, this graphite dissolves a little bit, but with a carbon you have black pigments in the paint, and usually that's not really what you want. Whereas if I want to paint a monochromatic black acrylic painting, I sometimes can use the pigment from the carbon pencil as the very first layer of my underpainting, essentially, because I already get some pigment from that. Okay. He's very cheeky, isn't he? Cheeky little jackdaw. I love them, they're such pretty birds. And they're nearly extinct in Berlin, which is so strange, because they tend to be in European cities a lot, because they nest in old buildings. So you'd think there'd be a lot in Berlin too, but there really aren't. There might still be some. I've seen some in Brandenburg, in the area surrounding Berlin. But yeah, they've become very, very rare there. And that has probably multiple reasons. One is something that is a problem for all birds that nest in buildings, and that's with increasing renovations. We humans tend to close the gaps in our roofs and anywhere where birds might want to nest, and that might be great for insulation, but it's terrible for the birds who used to live there. And so yeah, that way a lot of birds that nest in buildings find less and less places to live every year. That's jackdaws, that's swifts, that's swallows, although that's less in the cities. That's sparrows as well. So it's kind of a lot of the birds that we think are very common, and yeah, we think they're common because we see them in cities a lot, right? That's because that's where they live. But their populations are declining essentially every year. And especially with swifts, I think it's really tragic because they migrate so far and they return to the old nest every year. So they are essentially dead tired when they arrive back, and if they find their nest gone, or you know, the place where they used to nest is gone, they don't have the strength to find somewhere else, and that's it essentially for them. So yeah, it's really harsh reality for a lot of these birds. It's really sad because you pretty much, just when you're renovating your home or you're building a new house, you just kind of have to, you know, keep in mind that there are some other species who will not cause any problems and who'll just live their own lives essentially, and they need somewhere to live as well, because we've destroyed their natural habitats, and they have been lucky enough to adapt to our habitats, and then they can't really move away to the places they would have used to live, right? Because those don't exist anymore. Anyways, I think it would be really sad to lose all our city birds, including the pharaoh pigeons. Always makes me very happy when I see literally any being that isn't human in a city. It's like, oh, there's something alive in this place. We have not killed everything. Okay, so I'll start filling in the darkest areas. Obviously that's not the darkest it's gonna get ever, but essentially I'm just telling myself this is gonna be dark, keep that in mind, filling in the biggest contrasts. The eye is going to stay the lightest area. You know, they're very characteristic bright eyes. Oops. If I want to make sure that an edge doesn't dry, I really have to make sure they're kind of smooth, because otherwise I'm going to see it later on. Darker as well. We have some shadow here. Always looking for the larger shapes there. Now the eye is the only area that is going to stay really light, so I can essentially add a layer of paint to everything. Make sure this is dry so the paint doesn't move anymore. Okay, here I have to be a bit careful that this doesn't, you can tell this already stays. It doesn't move anymore. And I was pretty quick, so be careful if you add a lot of paint. It doesn't really matter here because this is going to get painted over anyways, but yeah. but it's something to keep in mind. Adding darker areas to add some volume to the shape. Here we have quite strong shadows. And this is interesting because we have a light edge here, the rim of the wing. Bit tricky. Currently painting into doing some wet in, wet painting again. Seeing where the paint wants to go. And I'm kind of relying on the fact that it's going to move and spread by itself a little bit, because it tends to be smoother than if I use my brush to move the paint around. Okay. Oh, that's a bit too dark, I think. Beak can be, oops, that's too much paint. Be a bit darker. Okay, it's a bit extreme. It's kind of there in the reference, but it's more subtle than this. Oh goodness. Okay. Already. Oh, this could be darker. Starting to find the texture of the feathers here. I'm not counting the feathers or anything, I'm just kind of replicating the general texture of them. Could be darker. Some smaller feathers here. Oops. Never mind. And for the pupil, already looks quite good, doesn't he? Or she. from the inside a little bit. Adding some more volume to the cap, because all these tufts of feathers, they have volume and shape as well. I have to look quite closely where the shadows are. The edges are, the corners of the eye are too pointed. I think that's what made it look so human as well. Okay. Dark areas. Oh, I seem to have run out of things to say. I'm kind of always just repeating, you know, what I'm doing. Just finding the shapes within the bigger shapes, and then getting darker, softening edges where I don't want them to be crisp. Trying to find the direction of the feathers. And I'm painting the shadow between the feathers. I'm not actually painting any feathers here. And if you have trouble seeing the contrasts on a piece of reference, because sometimes it's quite subtle, it always helps to squeeze your eyes together a little bit, because the contrasts become a bit more evident. Okay, I think this has gone a little bit too dark, but it's fine. So I'm not going to add a lot of detail here on the back. Simply not a lot going on. The wing itself is not quite round because there are bones underneath this all. Bones and joints. Adjusting the shape a little bit. want to catch some of the the larger shapes first before getting more into detail, because now it has dried a bit, so I can tell that it has lightened a bit too much, so we can get it darker. Now, I sometimes add the very opaque pure paint to the paper, and what this means is I have to make sure I spread it quickly so it doesn't dry, and that only works if you have space, right? If I was trying to do this here and I just wanted to cover a very small area with the paint, it just wouldn't work. In that case, I'd have to make sure the paint is diluted before it hits the paper. But at this stage, it doesn't matter. It's funny because this is something I do that I don't ever really think about. But I don't do it when I work with watercolor usually, I think. Because that's already liquid when it meets the paper. Okay, I think that actually, I like adding some texture. Obviously that's not in the reference. And where the paper is wet, it's not going to just be little sprinkles. It will create a little bit more variety and coincidence in there. Okay. I think this needs to dry a bit before I continue. Clearly I'm way more liberal with the water when I work with acrylics than when I do with watercolor. Feels a bit strange, but alright. Seems to be the way. For me anyways. Okay. So it looks quite patchy. We don't love it. So let's see. I can add some paint to smoothen this. To make this a little bit more smooth. I'm tired. Are you tired? This is the second study I'm painting today, and I am noticing that my focus is starting to go places it's not supposed to be. Well, it's fine. Okay. I can do it. I cannot fall asleep. because the evening sun is starting to shine through the windows. Okay. That doesn't look quite good, does it? Because this shape is quite closed when it's actually supposed to be a bit feathery because it's literal feathers. So I'm now tempted to add these lines, but that's not really what I need. What I need would be the background, like white, to cut out some of the dark paint. And this is acrylic, so I might end up working with opaque paints at some point, and then I might just do that. So I now just have to keep myself from working more on this, because that's not how I'm going to get the result I want. In this area it's fine. Just the outer edge. Okay. The same here. Okay, this can be essentially black, I think. Okay, so what I'd usually do is I'd probably keep it at that stage, painting wise, and then I'd go in with a carbon pencil and add more details. Because for me that's just faster. Okay, let's work in some more feathers. Now that this area is reasonably dry, we can add some more texture. Okay. Let's see if this eraser, oh, cat hair, okay, is still clean enough to actually erase anything. Yep. Okay. And that's that. And yeah, I'm gonna go. All this is fine. Gonna add some detail. Now, ideally the paper would be a bit drier. When it's wet, the tip of the pencil is going to press too hard into the surface, and you might damage the paper, and it's not ideal, but it's fine. All is good. Nothing matters. As you can tell, I'm not exactly adding really fine details here. I'm essentially continuing to just fill larger shapes, at least where I want it to be essentially just black, and then the fine lines can come in the more detailed areas. I mean, you can get really detailed just with acrylic paint. I guess that's what I should be doing now, but that's not how I work. I'm just impatient. I get frustrated if it takes too long, and it's just faster for me to pick up the pencil and add in the details. Because I usually work half digital and half traditional as well, so I'm just bringing the traditional artwork to a level where it looks fine, and then I do changes digitally and I add like the last pieces of detail. It's just faster because I just use each medium for what it's best at, I guess, or what I can best use it for. And it's more fun because I like switching media. I get bored easily if I just do the same thing a lot. I can do the same thing a lot over and over again, but yeah, it's a matter of keeping your brain occupied with something else because it just gets boring. I don't know, I feel like the way you work, what media you use, it just depends so much on you, yourself as an artist, and your personality, and what you need, right? What you need to finish the artwork, what you need to finish artwork on time, what you need to feel comfortable working for yourself, for other people. Your style depends on what you're good at and what you're interested in and how you work around the parts you're not great at. You know, it's So much depends on who you are as a person, really. You guys kind of have to let things develop. I don't know, I don't think I'm going to add a whole lot more in detail in this area. Okay, something when you're working with carbon pencil, because I'm working on a slightly wet surface right now, and I will have serious trouble trying to soften these lines now because they're already wet and they're very hard to now lift up the paper again. If I had waited for the surface to dry completely, I could very easily move the pigment around. And that probably would have been better because this is a bit too obvious for me. Too obvious as in, well, they're clearly pencil lines. But I don't care right now. Oh, see, that's what happens when the surface is really wet. Get these very dark lines. Yeah, so you really should wait until everything's dry, unless that's the look you're going for. That is absolutely the look I am going for now, of course. So now, because that's what I want to do now, is soften these lines a bit more. And I can use the pigment of the carbon pencil to darken some areas more. I mean, this is something you kind of have to keep in mind when you're working over the pencil again. You are going to darken your painting. So if you have like a really fine, really beautiful drawing somewhere and they're very nice light elements, I wouldn't paint over that again because you're going to change that. But since my goal is to kind of melt both media together so they look more like it's one medium, that's not what I'm worried about. And again, if this was a commission for a freelance client, I just scan the thing and do digital edits on top anyway, so nothing matters. Go wild. Seriously, if you work half digitally, it takes so much weight off your shoulders to nail it. Traditionally, you get to experiment more, you get to take chances, also because you can scan stages in between if you want to. But overall, it just gives me such a feeling of security because I just know I can fix everything later on. Or I know if I feel especially impatient with the painting, I know I don't have to take it really, really far in the details. I know I can just scan it and then go and do it digitally. And sometimes when I really enjoy painting and I really enjoy adding all these little big details, I can take it really far traditionally and then I barely have to do any edits at all. But I have both options. And depending on the job, if I have to be really, really quick, I might just do the bare minimum with the traditional part. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know I'm talking right now. Yes. Yes, I know there's nobody there, but it's fine. I'm okay, Shu. It's fine. Where's my train of thought? Yeah, sometimes you have to be fast, and digital tends to be faster. So I just do the bare minimum, the traditional work, so I get all the nice textures mostly, right? I get the general values down, I get the nice textures, and then I can add a lot of detail digitally. I can balance the values really quickly just by adding layers in Photoshop. So yeah, it's a lot quicker. It really depends on the job and the artwork, and yeah. So I just like to blend media together. Yeah, I think this needs too bright, but otherwise I think we're done here. Okay, maybe oh, come on. Well, yeah, that's how you can get paint from the bottle as well. See if I can get some of that back in, because that paint is expensive. Okay. This was still bugging me. Just working with a negative space here. Really fine feathers, and I feel like it makes such a difference, doesn't it? Details in the silhouette, the details in your big shapes can make such a difference in communicating what kind of material we're dealing with. And this is very soft, so it has to look soft. There we go. Going to add a little bit more of a background. Just very little. Okay, now I think this silhouette is fine, but the eye has gotten a little bit too dark, so I'm going to add a little bit more brightness back in. highlight is too big, so let's take some of that away. Okay. Huh. Well. I think the eye is so important, so maybe I tend to just kind of overdo it because I want to get it just right. Okay. I think it's fine. Well, it's fine, but okay, let's see. Okay. Just a little bit brighter in this area. Okay. Okay. And the highlight. Back here. There we go. It's too much. Yeah, well, fine. Let's keep it as it is now. Okay. Actually, this reflects some of the light. Should be much brighter. Least important part of the painting, but the values are off. While we're at it, this should be a bit brighter as well. Well, that's not right, but fine. Okay. Fine. Well, if you can't just start something, so this should be a bit brighter too. So, well, this is of course too bright. That's why I'm going to dilute this a bit. Okay. This should be good. Yeah, that's fine. No, there's something else. The corner of the mouth should be brighter like this. Okay. Okay, well, that's technically not. Okay, let's go with that. Let's go with that. The highlight is too big. Kind of makes things look cartoonish if the highlight gets too big. I mean, this one looks a bit cartoony anyway, but there. Tiny highlight. Yeah, well. It's done. It's done. I'm gonna keep it this way. That's